All right. This morning in Sunday school, we were talking about how Jesus showed up and Lazarus had died and had been dead for 4 days. And Jesus showed up and they were like, "Why didn't you get here on time? Why didn't you do this? And we're so sad, and our brother died." And Mary and Martha were very upset. Okay? Jesus told him to get up out of the grave. Now, let me ask you a question. Have you ever been to a funeral where somebody got up out of the grave, out of the casket? That would be weird, right? If you told me that the person in the casket was going to get up, I probably would not go because I don't want to see that, right? Well, I mean, you might would want to see it, but maybe not. Anyway, 2 days, Lazarus has been resurrected. They decide to thank Jesus. They're going to have a dinner, as you do, for a guest of honor, somebody that did something really nice for you. You're going to have a dinner for them. So that's where we're at in John chapter 12. This is the pre-funeral. Okay? And you'll see what I'm talking about here in just a minute. So you have Lazarus resurrected, both his sisters, Mary and Martha. Martha, she's like the pioneer woman of the bunch. She's all about making sure the house is ready and everything's decorated and everything's in place, meal's ready right on time. He's like that one, okay? And Mary is more of the, come on in and host it, kind of like, visit and that kind of thing. But together, they're kind of like the sisters on the wall. They make a really good team. But they did not have a recipe. An act. Now it says in John 12:1, 6 days before the Passover, Jesus arrived at Bethany where Lazarus lived, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. Here a dinner was given in Jesus' honor. Martha served while Lazarus was among those reclining at the table with him. So you see this picture here. We have Jesus kind of like they do at the Last Supper, how they did at every supper. They reclined on the floor. They had a little table out in front of them. It wasn't a lazy Susan. She didn't move at all. Table. And everybody just sat around and leaned back on the cushions. And that was the way that they did. That was the way they ate. That's the way the Last Supper was. So here we have Lazarus fresh out the hole. Yeah. Fresh. Revived, right? It's the only time we hear about this guy. After he's resurrected. He didn't have a lot to say, did he? You'd think that he would have had a lot to say. He might have been complaining all the time. Why did y'all want me to come back? Why did y'all make me come back? That's what I would have been saying. Nevertheless, he is here reclining at this table with Jesus. Jesus is the guest of honor. Lazarus is back from the dead, so he's got a pretty good seat too. So everybody's around, and that's the scene that we're at, all right? This is 6 days before the Passover, before the Last Supper. This is 7 days before Jesus dies on the cross, right? This is what's happened in the week before. As Jesus is getting ready to come on into Jerusalem as the triumphant king on Palm Sunday, Saturday night, he's having a party. Here they are. It says, verse number 3, Mary took about a pint of pure nard. Y'all who watch The Office know about the nard dog, right? Nard, let me explain what nard is. Nard was just a shortened version of the scientific word for this flower. It looks and smells a lot like lavender. Okay? It only grows over in the area of Jerusalem. So therefore it's a very rare thing. So nard, what you had to do was you got the flour, and you ever got the oil out of a flour? Yeah, me neither. So apparently it takes a lot of squeezing. They didn't have hydraulic presses back then, okay? So when they squeezed the oil out of a little flour, it took a minute. It took a lot. And that made this particular spice or fragrance very expensive. She had a pint. That's like a whole pound of pure nard, which was all the oil out of this one particular flower. One of the most expensive things you could own at that time. Mary's brother just came back from the grave. She didn't put it on him. Talking about that this morning, right? But you just had a dead brother. You didn't think about like a couple sprinkles or something, you know? I mean, you were telling Jesus, hey, he's probably stinking by now. You got nard, right? That nard wasn't for him. The priest says she poured it on Jesus' feet and wiped his feet with her hair, and the house was filled with the fragrance. Jesus is the guest of honor, about to enter in the triumphal entry on the donkey, coming into town, and it's going to go from cheers to jeers. And he knows what he's facing. All that Mary knew was that he was going to anoint the body. Well, it says in verse number 4, one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, who was later to betray him, objected and said, why wasn't this perfume sold and the money given to the poor? It was worth a year's wages. He didn't say this because he cared about the poor, but he was a thief. That's what John said. Tell us what you really think, John. As keeper of the money bag, he used to help himself to what he was putting into it. Okay. Jesus said, leave her alone. It was intended that she should save this perfume for the day of my burial. That was still another week away. Why did he let her anoint him that day? It was for the day of his burial. It was the preacher. Jesus knew what was waiting on him. Nobody else did, even though he told them many times what was waiting on him, and yet they didn't get it. He told them over and over again. You know who got it? Mary got it. She knew that she was saving for Jesus, not even for her. The most expensive perfume that you could get in those days were myrrh, nard, frankincense, and these were all used in the temple as anointing oil because the fragrance would stick with you after you went to the temple and they anointed your head with oil. You smelled it the rest of the day. And just like you smell it, it reminds you of the anointing that you just received. God would smell it. It was like the prayer, sweet aroma to the Lord. Watch it. She said she was saving it for his burial. Now, if you're anointing a body for burial, That means you are pouring it on his head. And you're pouring so much on there that it's covering his entire body. This you poured it on his feet. She poured it on his head to anoint him, but she used so much that it covered his entire body all the way down to his feet. Now this thing was such precious, this oil was, that she didn't want it to just run off all onto the floor. No, she got down on her knees and bowed her head to the ground and used what hair was loose from her bonnet. And she wiped it up. What do you think she did? She reapplied. And she just kept putting it on. There wasn't no putting it back in the jar. See, when they made this stuff, they put it in a jar, and the only way that they could open the jar was to break the jar. Now, the jar that she had it in was made out of alabaster. It was real expensive itself. When she broke that jar and the oil reached out all over the body of Jesus, whether she really realized it or not, she was getting him ready for marriage. A year's wages. Where did she get this? Whose wages? Her wages or somebody else? How much was this worth? Some people believe that this lady was a widow. Some people believe that they inherited money. Some people believe, and I'm a Christian, I believe that she just always saved the Lord. And one day, she knew what it was for. I think she always had it on her that I'm supposed to do something with this. I'm going to collect it. And I'm just going to start storing it up. And I'm going to put it in this one alabaster jar. I'm going to have this thing filled up. And I'm going to do that. You ever had God lay something on your heart and only use the only one that could do it? You might think that you ain't very special, but God made you special. He made you unique. And there ain't nobody else like you. Jada, there ain't nobody else like you. You're the only Jada, right? Right. There ain't but one Adriana. There she is. You see her? Girl, there ain't but one you. Hey, she was drinking a Coke that said Carlson. She didn't get up and start doing like this. Right? Carlson. Carson. Oh, my bad. Did I? You're recording this, huh? You had to put that double time. Why are you doing it so slow? You just see my crip walk. Anyway, leave her alone. Leave her alone. That's what Jesus said. Leave her alone. You're always going to have the poor among you. You're not always going to have me. Jesus said this, and it was like the most non-humble kind of thing for Jesus to say. Like, hey, she's using this on me. It's fine. Normally, Jesus doesn't talk like this, right? Where he's saying, it's okay to praise me. Normally, he's very humble. And he's like, give it to God. Give it to God. Even Jesus said it. Jesus knew this week was his last week. He knew that this week he was about to become the most hated man in the area. There were going to be people that were cheering for him to die. There were going to be people ripping at his beard. There may be some families over in the Middle East right now. They still got a little piece of hair handed down generation to generation. Part of Jesus or something. Part of the cross. You know, a keepsake, a memento. But there were people lined the street. And there were people that cheered and cried. And they cast lots for his clothes. And enjoy my presence while you can. How much should I spend on this? How much should I give in what could be my last chance with the Lord? What should I do if this is my last opportunity to sup with the Lord? This is my last opportunity to bless Jesus. How can you do that? Well, Mary collected nard. Weird, huh? Maybe you're supposed to do something, save up something, to bless something. Maybe you're chosen to be a messenger in a particular way. Ain't nobody else be a messenger. Ain't nobody else going to preach in your class like you can, right? I can't go in there and love on people the way Jesus loves on people. But you can, right? You can go into your class and do that, but I can't. You know people that I don't know that you get to go and minister to and love on and do things for. Maybe you got a talent that only, you're the only one in the group that knows how to do a certain thing. Maybe God's wanting you to be able to do that thing and to be that thing or to bless that person or to give that person some hope or whatever the cost is. I want to tell you tonight, you got to hear me on this now. Whatever the cost is, whether it is a year's wage, no matter what it is, if you would just pour it out on the Lord, I promise you it'll be worth it. I promise you it'll be worth it. Whatever effort you've got to pour out onto the Lord, for the Lord, to the Lord, and God will give you the reward. Oh, man. One day, Mary is going to stand at the judgment seat of Christ. Mary. And Jesus is going to remember that day that she poured all of it on. She didn't hold any back. She poured it all on him to the point where it ran over. In that day, you didn't hold anything back. You talking about the blessing. And then there will be others that show up. Like, you could have given a lot more. I called you for many years. This is what we've got, though. Let's see what we've got. This is what you did for my glory, not yours. And you didn't hold anything back. I went back to the 1900s. 84. You remember that day? The Karate Kid came out. He was very excited. Thought he'd get a coach. Welcome to heaven. Oh, you did? Maybe. I don't know. We only know how we serve, right? And God does too. There are always going to be people in need, right? Everywhere you look, everybody's in need. How do you bless the Lord? Figure that out. Once you figure out how you can bless the Lord, how you can anoint Jesus, how you could possibly bring him glory, I promise you, you're going to find a joy that you've never experienced. You can make Mary did. It cost her a year's wage, right? It cost her something very expensive, but satisfied. It was just right. I don't know how many, if ever, I've ever done anything in my life where it's just like that. But he's keeping tabs on everything and why we do this. So this week, as we approach Easter, we start thinking on Wednesday night about, I know I do, I start thinking about how tomorrow's the last supper. And then on Thursday, I'm like, this is called Maudie Thursday. And do it quick. Go on. And all his friends were like, I wouldn't betray you. I wouldn't either. Peter's like, I swear I wouldn't betray you. Like, you don't swear? You don't even know me. Yeah, you will 3 times. Before the rooster crows in the morning, you're going to do that 3 times. And man, when the day broke and that rooster crowed, I have been going around saying, I don't even know. Peter didn't give his best that night. I thought that was beautiful. Why are you so dramatic, bro? Lighten up. Eddie talking real funny. Morgan Freeman. Anyhow, when Peter was restored by Jesus, Jesus restored him by asking him, "Do you love me?" 3 times. Do you love me? You know I do. All right. But do you love me? Yeah. Yeah. Wait a minute. Do you love me? Yeah. Go all the way. Feed my lamb. Take care of my children. Talking about a big responsibility. This dude just said he didn't know you. No matter what you've done, Jesus will take you back. No matter what you think has happened that still has disqualified you, Jesus has requalified you. Okay? Jesus wants to use you. Any praise you can give to him is only going to bring you closer. He deserves it. He died on a cross that we deserve. We deserve whatever death should come to us. Fire and rain, hanging from a pole, whatever it was. We deserve to die and be separated from God forever. We're not. We've been given life every single day. Chance to give God. What's he going to give him? Maybe he's wanting you to save up. Maybe he's wanting you to store up, study up, save up. No. God will call you at the right time, and he'll make it known to you. I need you now. I want you now. Now is your time. He may do that with Lakeland and Sue, right? He may do it with Bob when he's singing. Totally change somebody's life. You never know. Boy, Mary did not waste her chance. She gave it everything. Not to her brother, though.